to hell for all I care. You useless brother of my husband.
Mommy Chichi, I beg. It is raining. Where will I go by this time of night? Benjamin, stand up and leave my house. You are a stain on this family's name. You are not her father. You are nothing but the help. Get out!
The day my world crumbled, it wasn't because of a physical earthquake. It was because of a small white piece of paper I held in my hand during a medical outreach program at my university in Enugu. I was Chidera, the only daughter of Chief Magnus, a man whose name opened doors in every corner of the state. Growing up in our mansion in Independence Layout, I had everything. The best private schools, designer lace, and a driver who took me everywhere in a car that smelled of expensive leather and imported air freshener. But the most constant person in my life wasn't the man who sat at the head of the long mahogany dining table. It was Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben was introduced to me when I was just 10 years old. Chief Magnus had brought him in one rainy Tuesday, his clothes soaked and his eyes looking at the floor. Chichi, my father had said, his voice booming like a town crier's gong. This is my younger brother from the village. He is not very bright and he has no money, so he will be living in the boys' quarters and helping around the house. He is here to serve this family, so don't go and be making friends with him. For 10 years, Uncle Ben was the houseboy disguised as a relative. My mother, Lolo Neka, treated him like a dog that had lost its back. If the black SUV wasn't washed by 6 a.m., she would scream at him from the balcony, calling him a useless, empty-headed village man until the neighbors started peeping over their fences. If his portion of gari was too much, she would remind him that he was a liability, a mouth that ate for free. Yet, Uncle Ben never once talked back. He would just smile at me, his eyes full of a strange, deep warmth that I couldn't explain, and say, "Don't worry, Chichi. Your mother is just tired. Just focus on your books. Become a big doctor for me, okay? Make me proud." The problem began during my final year of medical school. Our class was doing a DNA profiling project. We needed samples from family members to study hereditary markers and blood group patterns. I laughed, thinking it would be an easy A. I took a swab from my father's favorite wine glass and one from my mother's toothbrush. But just for fun, and because I loved him more than the man who barely looked at me, I took a stray hair from Uncle Ben's old broken wooden comb in the boys' quarters. When the results came back from the lab, the entire world went silent. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The profile for Chief Magnus showed a 0% probability of paternity. He wasn't my father. He wasn't even related to me. But the sample from the houseboy, the man everyone called a useless village brother, was a 99.9% match. Uncle Ben was my biological father. I didn't go home that day. I sat by the Ekulu River, watching the water flow, and cried until my eyes burned. My eyes were swollen, and my chest felt like it was under a heavy stone. How? Why? Was my mother a common cheat? Was the chief a fraud? Every memory of Uncle Ben carrying my school bag, of him sneaking me extra meat from his own small plate, of him staying up to help me study by candlelight when the generator went off, it all started to make sense. I returned home late that evening. The lab report folded so tightly in my pocket it felt like it was burning my skin. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard the familiar sound of my mother's sharp tongue. "Benjamin, I told you never to touch Chichi's graduation photos with your dirty, oily hands. Look at the smudge you've put on her face." "Nneka, please." Uncle Ben's voice was low, broken like a dry twig. "I just wanted to see how beautiful she looks in her gown. I am the one who paid for those extra prints, Nneka. I saved the money from the garden work I did for the neighbor. I just wanted one to keep in my room." "You paid?" My mother laughed, a wicked sharp sound that echoed off the tiles. "With whose money? Everything you have in this world belongs to Magnus. You are lucky we even let you breathe the same air as us after the mess you caused 21 years ago. Go back to your hole in the BQ." I pushed the door open. The atmosphere shifted instantly. "What mess happened 21 years ago, Mommy?" I asked, my voice trembling with a rage I didn't know I possessed. Chief Magnus walked in then, adjusting his gold-rimmed glasses and smelling of expensive snuff and power. "Chidera, why are you shouting at your mother? Is this what we sent you to school to learn? And you, Benjamin, I told you to stay out of the main house." "He isn't going anywhere," I said, pulling out the paper and slamming it on the dining table. "I did the test. I know the truth. Uncle Ben is my father. So tell me, Chief, who are you? And why has my father been living like a slave in your house for 10 years? The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush a man. My mother collapsed into a chair, her hand over her mouth as if she could pull the words back into her throat. Chief Magnus didn't look shocked. He looked annoyed, like a man whose favorite shoe had been stained with mud. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, the ice clinking like a death knell. "You want the truth, Chidera? Fine," Chief Magnus said, his voice cold as a winter morning in the village. 21 years ago, I realized I couldn't give your mother a child. In our culture, a man without an heir is a man without a soul. I had a reputation to protect. I was chief. I couldn't be the man whose engine was dead. The village would have laughed me out of the council. He pointed a finger at Ben, who was now weeping silently, his shoulders shaking. Ben was my mother's distant cousin's son, a nobody from a family of beggars. He was in love with your mother back in the village before I showed up with my bags of money and bought her with a heavy bride price. I made him a deal. I told him he could provide the service so the family name wouldn't die. In exchange, I would pay off his family's massive debts and keep him fed for life. He was a donor, nothing more. My heart shattered into a million pieces. "So you used him? You bought a person?" "No," Ben spoke up, his voice cracking with 20 years of suppressed pain. "Chichi, I didn't do it for the money. I didn't care about his debt. I did it because Magnus said if I didn't agree, he would take Neka away where I would never find her. He promised that if I stayed as a servant, I would be able to see you grow up. Could at least watch you grow. I chose to be a slave, just to be your uncle. I chose to let them insult me and kick me every day, just so I could see your face before you went to school. I stayed for you, Chidera." The escalation was swift and brutal. My mother jumped up, pointing a shaky finger at Ben. "And he signed a contract. He swore on his life he would never tell. Magnus, throw this man out. He has contaminated our daughter's mind with his presence. He is a curse." Chief Magnus didn't hesitate. He grabbed Ben by the collar, the man who had been his brother and servant for a decade, and dragged him toward the front door. "You've outlived your usefulness, Benjamin. Chichi now knows, so there is no reason to keep a dog that can no longer bark secretly. Pack your rags and get out." It was raining heavily outside, a typical Enugu downpour. They threw Ben out into the mud. I watched as the man who had secretly paid for my extra lesson teachers by selling his own clothes, the man who stayed awake every night until I returned from campus just to make sure I was safe, was kicked like a stray animal. "If you follow him, Chidera," Chief Magnus warned, his voice booming over the rain, "you lose everything. You lose this house, the cars, the medical school fees. You will be nothing but the daughter of a houseboy. Think carefully." I looked at Chief Magnus, a man built on lies, hollow pride, and stolen fatherhood. Then I looked at my mother, who had watched her first love be humiliated for 2 decades just to keep her luxury life. The big twist came a week later at Chief Magnus's grand 60th birthday party. He had invited the governor, the traditional rulers, and all the big men in the state. He wanted to show off his perfect family. But I had my own plan. During the toast, I didn't show a slideshow of Chief Magnus's achievements. I played the recording I had made on my phone that night in the kitchen. The whole hall heard Chief Magnus bragging about how he bought a seed and turned a father into a slave. The scandal was instant.
The governor stood up and left without saying a word. The chief's reputation evaporated in seconds. But that wasn't all. Kama had been walking in the shadows. In Uncle Ben's small, damp room in the boys' quarters, I found an old trunk. Inside were documents showing that Ben had been quietly buying small, useless plots of land in the outskirts of the city for 20 years using every kobo he saved. That land now was exactly where the new international airport and luxury estate were being built. 6 months later, Chief Magnus's business collapsed as everyone distanced themselves from the scandal. My mother fled the country in shame. I moved into a beautiful new house with my father, my real father, Ben. He no longer wore faded brown shirts. He wore the dignity he had traded away 21 years ago. As I stood on the graduation stage, I didn't look for a chief in the front row. I looked for the man with the calloused hands and the widest, most proudest smile in the world. That day, I learned that a father isn't the one who puts his name on a birth certificate to save his ego. A father is the one who is willing to walk through the fire of humiliation every single day just to make sure his child never has to feel the heat. The hands that once washed Chief Magnus's cars were the same hands that now held my medical degree, and those hands were cleaner than all the gold in the world. There are thousands of families living a lie just like this one, and the truth is always crazier than fiction. If you want to be the first to see our next shocking African folktale, where a woman discovers her husband's secret brother is actually his second wife, click that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Don't miss out on the next big revelation from Gracious Folktales.